Hello and good day. I'm David Boles and this is Boles.tv. Hey, it's Boles.television coming to you live from the east coast of these United States. I'm David Boles and we are getting our first, I would say, snowfall of the moment. Now, when it snows, you look out your window and there's snow. But I guess the meteorologists don't call it a first snow until there's enough snow on the ground to be measurable. So I guess that's where we are now. We're in the is it going to snow enough to be measurable part of winter. And it's not going to be measurable. That's becoming clear. It's very light, almost rainy. Not drizzle, not giant flakes, but you look out the window and you can say, okay, that is snow. You get alerts on your phone saying, hey, do you know it's snowing outside your window? So it's a change because I guess you could say the snow has come early this year. Now, growing up in the Midwest, sometimes we get snow in September. And then, you move East Coast and climate changes, things get warmer, and over the years, sometimes you don't see snow in New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. You don't see it until sometimes measurably until January sometimes. It's a little strange. So I'm not sure if we like this snow because snow often turns to ice if it gets warm and then freezes. And ice is more dangerous than snow. And I remember when I took one of my very first driving tests, I believe it was in New Jersey, and one of the questions I got wrong was, when are the roads most dangerous? When it snowed a lot? When it just started raining? Heavy downpour, and I think the fourth one was like street flooding. And this is, the time when they first started, having computerized driving tests. And so I, looked at them and thought, well, clearly the answer is when it's heavy raining, because, flooding, you can't really go very fast. You have to slow down. Snowing on the East Coast, people don't know how to drive in snow, so they usually stay home. But if it's raining, people think they can just get through it, and, they turn on their windshield wipers, they can't see the other driver, they have an accident. Okay, that's the answer. Meh. I got it wrong. I couldn't believe it. I sat there and stared at the screen. I said, how is it possible? And I had read the book. And then I kind of remembered in the haunting of my lizard mind, oh my, I think the answer is right when it starts raining. Because, and they explain it to you in the book, is that people don't slow down. When it's heavy rain, people slow down and sometimes try to go a little slower so they can see. But when it just starts raining, people may not even be aware that it's raining. They don't slow down. They keep going to speed. They might not have very good tires. And then things quickly become very slick when it starts to rain. And everything gets washed away very quickly. And cars have accidents. So I guess that's a good thing to know. I haven't forgotten it all for all of these years. 20 years, 25 years since I first took the test in New Jersey. Meow. Streets are the most dangerous when it begins to rain, not after it's been raining. Interesting stuff that stays with you forever. So you always try to remain a lifelong learner. And even though you think you might know everything, as my friend Marshall Jameson told me all those years ago, when I was probably 15 or 16, he said, the older I become, the less I know, which is very wise. And at 15, 16, you're not very wise. And you respond, probably, not that I did, but probably, I know everything. The more I live, the more I learn. I'm smarter. And then you get to be a little bit older, a little bit wiser, and you think, okay, as things go on and life changes around you, there are no such thing as black and white, right and wrong. There's only gray, and it's mushy, and it's in the middle. And the longer you're around, you say, okay, I think I know what's going on, but really I have no clue. You think you know what's going to happen, and then in the end, you have no idea what's going to happen. So that's the wisdom of the ages wasted on the young. Not that I did that, but I probably did. And we have big news today at, I guess, what time is it? One, you have to do the time math in your head. The University of Nebraska-Lincoln volleyball team is playing in the national championship tournament today at 2 p.m. our time, which is Eastern time. And they're playing at 1 p.m. Central time, if I'm remembering it right. And it's the Huskers. They used to be called the Lady Huskers. Sort of an insult. A Husker's a Husker. If you're male, you're female, you're a Husker. Come on now. But maybe the basketball team is still called the Lady Huskers. I don't know. Better than the female Huskers, I guess. I didn't realize female was kind of a pejorative now. You say man or woman. You don't say male or female. I guess that men tend to use female as sort of an insult. I sort of learned that the other day and thought, okay, I understand the reasoning behind it. It makes sense. So the Husker volleyball team is playing Georgia Tech at 2 p.m. today. It's on the television, as the kids say, I believe ESPN2. And then if they win, then they play again on Saturday, 6 p.m. Eastern time, against an unknown opponent, because that game hasn't been played yet. So Saturday, 5 o'clock Central, 6 o'clock Eastern. Today, the volleyball game is at 2 p.m. Now, last time we were together, we talked about learning languages, how you can use methods and moments to help enhance your reading ability. And people learn foreign languages, new languages, for a plethora of reasons, because they meet somebody who speaks a different language, romantic reasons. They're in school, they need to, pass a class, graduate, they need a foreign language, boom. They're going to visit a foreign country, so they learn a little bit of the language so they can communicate. And a lot of these language learning systems are sort of aimed at quick learning, like for a school setting, or quick learning if you're a visitor. So they all sort of tend to be kind of touristy. Money, directions, food, hotels, friends. Those are kind of the general topics. Now, my interest in learning Italian is because of opera. Many of the greatest operas are written in Italian. And even though it's old school Italian, it's still Italian. And for our ASL Opera project, I want to be able to try to understand the origins of these operas as they are interpreted from the original language, it may be Italian, into English and then to American Sign Language. So that's my process. That's my reasoning behind trying to learn Italian. I learned ASL for the love of a beautiful and talented woman named Jana Marie, sweetheart. So the other day I showed you this book, right? Parallel text. I love this idea. So my reason for learning Italian is so I can read and understand. Speaking, important, not a top priority for me, but I find that I'm pretty good at it because I guess, I have history as an actor, good mimic, do a podcast, do a live stream. So the talking part is okay. Learning the grammar is more difficult. Reading is really is my next big chunk that I need to concentrate on. And I have a lot of Italian books that are fun. They're like made for children. I'll show some of them to you next time. But this is very interesting because on one side of the page you have a story in English. And then on the other side of the page, the same page, you have it translated to Italian. And maybe it's the other way around. Italian and then English. I can't remember. Yes, it's in Italian first and then in English. So you read the Italian, then you have the English. And it's great because you're reading along, right, in, we hope, Italian. And you get stuck on a word. What does that mean? And right there, you don't have to go to a dictionary. You don't have to ask anybody. You don't have to go online. You don't have to ask your AI bot. AI bots are very good foreign language teachers, by the way. And you can just look right on the page. Oh, that word means this in English. And then you can continue reading, and that's how you build a vocabulary. A lot of fun. I like it. So there are also other books that do this same sort of thing. Here's another one that I have been able to procure for my Italian learning. Italian Stories, 11 short stories by Machiavelli, Pirandello, Moravia, and others in the original Italian and a new English translation. This is the Dover dual language. This is Penguin's version of dual language. So what's it like? It's pretty much the same ding-dang thing. And I just am so incredibly in love with it. One side, better paper than the Penguin. Dover does better paper. One side is the Italiano, and the other side is the L'Inglese. So you can just read along with these very famous authors and dramatists. And again, you don't have to go online, use a dictionary. If you don't understand what you're reading, you can just look at the other page because it's a line-by-line translation, and you can see exactly what you're trying to remember. It's a fantastic way to learn. I'm not done yet. Meow. Same thing, Dover series, right? Okay. This is like short stories and dramatic pieces. This is poetry. So if you're reading and maybe you're just starting out and you get a little overwhelmed by pages and pages of text, here you go. You have a little poem with English on one side, Italian on the other, and it's translated for you. So if you get stuck, you don't know what that word means, you just look, go right across the page. There it is. I can see it. I'm enjoying myself. And this one even has little photographs just to kind of keep you company, right? Gives you a little background of what the poem is and the meaning. I tell you, sometimes old school learning is the best way to learn. And old school learning means paper, print, and books. Digital is great. AI bots are great. Online tutoring, great. Online forums, wonderful. But sometimes you just need to hold it in your hands. And it can be very effective. So those are some of my tips for quick learning in Italian. Now, another thing I want to discuss is this idea of tipping. Now, we in America tip for everything. Everybody has their hand out now. Sometimes you go and pick up something from a fast food restaurant, and they'll want a tip before they give you your food. Even if you tipped in the app or tipped online or pre-tipped, they want another tip. Some people complain that they go to restaurants now, and if there are more than one person, they automatically add an 18% tip to your bill. Now, does that include alcohol? It's not supposed to, but it often does. Now, for me, an automatic 18% tip that they just add and you're not involved in and you can't comment on is fine. Because when we go out to a nice place, we tip on alcohol and we tip more than 18%. We always tip at least 20, and sometimes if the service is really good and we have a good time, we tip 25%. Now some people will laugh and say, "What's wrong with you?" I'm pulling up my socks, by the way. One sock is always down and one sock is always up. And then I pull them both up and then one stays up and the other goes back down. It's the strangest thing. Drives me insane. So people are getting fed up with, you walk into a restaurant, you place an order, and they spin around their square pad and say, "Hey, add a tip." And, we do work online, and we send invoices online. And even if you're just sending an invoice for services, you can go to an area that said, allow them to add a tip. And I know there are people who do it because I know they do. We would never do anything like that because, my goodness, you're already, paying for services, paying tax on top of that, which we have to collect and pay. And then you're going to have the gall to add a tip. I read somewhere a friend of mine said they were having their house re-roofed. I think it was $10,000 to have new shingles put on. And they paid the bill, $10,000. And then the contractor came back and said, "Don't you want to add a tip for the workers?" And my friend just kind of looked at him and said, "No, that's your job. You pay them. Why am I paying them? I'm paying for everybody to work on the job." And the contractor gave him a look like, "Oh." And then my friend kind of freaked out and said, "Oh, now they're going to go, mess up my shingles." But it does seem a little out of hand. And I don't know where this tipping culture comes from. There were restaurants that started and said, "No tipping whatsoever. We pay our employees a lot of money. You don't have to tip them." And people would be upset. They'd tip anyway. Tourists from other countries come to America. They don't tip back home. It's sort of seen as an insult to tip somebody because it's like you're tipping them to do their job that they're already getting paid for. Well, this is America, where anything goes. So you have these people who come over and they demand a lot, they eat a lot, they drink a lot, and the tip is zero. Now that's out of line. If you're going to visit a foreign country, learn some of the memes and schemes of how to get along in their society. And in America, you're a tourist, you go out to eat somewhere, you're going to have to tip somebody. Now a lot of these buildings are now sort of wink, wink, demanding tips from renters, right? Big conversation going on in New York City where a management company sent everyone in the building, a small building of 6 apartments, said, "Here's the recommendation to give everyone the holiday cheer in your building who services your building. If you have a 1-bedroom apartment, pay $225 to us and we'll distribute it for you," which I sort of like. 1-bedroom apartment, $150. If you're in a studio, $75. And the idea for all of that was to evenly distribute the tip money to everyone who worked in the building. Now, some of the bigger buildings don't do that. I mean, it'd be just great to say, okay, yes, I'll participate in tipping. Tell me how much I owe, I'll pay it and leave me alone. But some of the bigger buildings say, oh, here's a list of everyone who works in the building. They sure would love to hear you getting a card this holiday season. And so you go and you give them a card. And some people don't put money in the card. And it's like, oh boy, you don't get it. And a lot of people are not from here. A lot of people live in big buildings for the first time and they just moved here from an Asian country or wherever. But new buildings in New Jersey and New York tend to be quickly rented by young Asians specifically, as I understand it from my management friends from China. So they arrive, they, get an email saying, hey, yeah, appreciate your staff. And they don't know that that's a code phrase for give us money. So then you sort of have to go through, person by person, department by department. How much do I spend here, here, here? And it can add up really quickly. And it's all going specifically to different people. Now, they prefer cash, but I think one day, if they're not just going to collect a flat fee for the holiday gifts, why not allow some kind of electronic payment? Venmo, PayPal, Cash App, whatever. If the person receiving, because it's so much easier to do it that way. Okay, here's my phone, bing, 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 bing. Everybody's tipped, I'm done. Otherwise, you have to go to the bank. You have to withdraw a lot of cash in a variety of denominations, come back, divide up the cash, write a little note, put it in an envelope, and then deliver it. And some buildings have a lot of workers, like 25, 30 people, and you got to do that. Pay everybody a little something. So I don't know when it's going to end. You think, people who live in luxury apartments, high-rise buildings, you think they wouldn't be expected to really tip because they pay a lot of money in rent. But it's almost they say, oh, you live here, so you have to tip because you have a nice apartment. And it's interesting talking about perception. In some of the online groups, people who deliver for Amazon, Uber, they get so furious when they go to these big mansions and they take pictures of the house and post it online, say, they bought $500 worth of food and I didn't get a tip. And that is outrageous. And if you're going to have someone do a service for you, and tipping is part of that culture, you have to tip them something. But I also think, gosh, they live in a big house like that, and they're, ordering like regular everyday things to be delivered. Probably all of their money is in their house. I bet if you went in their big mansion, you'd see it's pretty empty because every penny they have is going to pay their mortgage. And in a lot of these big luxury buildings, $3,000 rents for a one-bedroom apartment. People are spending all their money on the rent. They don't have a lot of extra money to go around tipping people. It's just a fact of life. And so people say, well, then why order food delivery if you can't tip and you live in a nice building? It's a good point. And that's why we don't kind of do that. We try to be fair and appreciative and, tip people who do good work for you. And I prefer to tip per incident, right? Somebody comes over, helps you, tip them right away. But in these big buildings, not allowed. You're not allowed to tip the staff. No tipping. You move in here, no tips for anybody. And then in December, you get an email saying, hey, if you want to show your appreciation. It's like, wait a minute. I thought tips weren't allowed. Now you want us to tip. Doesn't make any sense. So I would prefer to tip just during the year, right when service is rendered. They go out of their way to help you, give them a nice tip. Because by the time December rolls around, they might not be here anymore. Some of these big buildings have a little bit of turnover. Now we're briefly going to discuss something that's just really, you can't say it any other way but offensive, where the heads, I guess, the presidents of these prestigious universities went before Congress to testify about this free speech thing with Hamas, the terrorist group, and Israel, who got bombed by the terrorist group. And from a couple of days ago, I watched some of these interviews on television. It was shocking. Now, the president of Harvard and the president of the University of Penn, two Ivy League schools, could not answer a question, is it wrong for students to call and chant on the campuses of their universities for the death of Israel? Well, it's free speech. Well, the context matters. It really doesn't matter. So here we go with a question asked by Elise Stefanik, who's from New York, very smart, but not a very nice person. As we see on television, she's very severe. So Stefanik asked Dr. Gay, a Harvard student calling for the mass murder of African Americans is not protected free speech at Harvard, correct? And the president of Harvard says, our commitment to free speech. Now, that's a yes or no question. And Stefanik is trying to flip this around because they were asking about people from Israel, Jews, where people can go against Jews on campus. Is that okay? And the president kind of said, well. So Stefanik tried to flip it around and say, okay, African Americans, is that free speech at Harvard to kill them? And the president says, our commitment to free speech. And Stefanik rightly, severely says it's a yes or no question. Is that correct? Is that okay for students to call for the mass murder of African Americans at Harvard? Is that protected free speech? And the president of Harvard is humana, 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 humana. Our commitment to free speech. And you're watching it and you're listening to it. And as a graduate student of an Ivy League school at Columbia University in the city of New York, I sit there dumbfounded. I think these presidents of universities are terrified of their students. And these students know it. Stefanik asks again, it's a yes or no question. Let me ask you this. You're president of Harvard. I assume you're familiar with the term intifada, correct? Yeah, I have heard the term, yes. And it goes on. And you understand that the use of the term intifada in the context of the Israeli-Arab conflict is indeed a call for violent, armed resistance against the state of Israel, including violence against civilians and the genocide of Jews. Are you aware of that? And the president of Harvard says, that type of hateful speech is personally abhorrent to me. And Stefanik says, and there have been multiple marches at Harvard with students chanting, quote, there is only one solution, intifada revolution, and, quote, globalize the intifada. Is that correct? And the president of Harvard says, I've heard that thoughtless, reckless, and hateful language on our campus, yes. So, Stefanik says, based upon your testimony, you understand that this call for intifada is to commit genocide against the Jewish people in Israel and globally, correct? And the president replies, humana, 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 humana. I will say again, that type of hateful speech is personally abhorrent to me. So Stefanik goes in for the kill. Do you believe that type of hateful speech is contrary to Harvard's code of conduct, or is it allowed at Harvard? President replies, it's at odds with the values of Harvard. And Stefanik says, can you not say here that it is against the code of conduct at Harvard? The president replies, we embrace a commitment to free expression, even of views that are objectionable, offensive, hateful. It's when that speech crosses into conduct that violates our policies against bullying. Stefanik very rightly presses on and says, does that speech not cross that barrier? Does that speech not call for the genocide of Jews and the elimination of Israel? You testified that you understand that that is the definition of intifada. Is that speech according to the code of conduct or not? The president says, humana, 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 humana. We embrace a commitment to free expression and give a wide berth to free expression, even of views that are objectionable, outrageous, and offensive. And Stefanik says, you and I both know that That is not the case. And this went on, and this president of Harvard is looking terrible. And then, even worse, they go to the president of Pennsylvania University, UPenn. It's the same thing. Well, is that free speech or not? Meow, 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 meow. It was absolutely ridiculous. And then so today we get this update. College presidents under fire after dodging questions about anti-Semitism. The leaders of Harvard, MIT, and Penn appeared to evade questions. There was no appearance. They evaded questions about whether students should be disciplined if they call for the genocide of Jews. And this is the president of UPenn, and she, oh my goodness, posted a video apology online, and she was reading it horribly. No passion, no thoughtfulness, and she wasn't even looking at the camera. She was looking down the whole time. I was reading it. Didn't make any sense. And you're thinking, how can this person lead a university and she's that weak, that wishy-washy, stands for absolutely nothing until she gets called on it in front of Congress? And both the Harvard president and the UPenn president both said, "Oh, we didn't know what we were going to be asked when we were testifying. We were nervous. And you don't believe that. If their students use that excuse for not going to class or for not handing in a paper, you would say, that's not an excuse. You know what's expected of you. You've been called to testify before Congress on how your students are misbehaving and misunderstanding what's going on in the Hamas-Israel conflict. And yet they say, oh, well, how could we possibly know? And here's the problem is these presidents know better. They know the history. And these young people tend not to know. They don't know the full history of Israel. They don't know what happened. They don't know the conflicts. They only know what they have been coded to understand. Oh, one person's picking on another. Well, when somebody starts a fight with you, the old saying is, I'm not going to start a fight, but I'll finish one. And that's what Israel is doing right now. They did not pick this fight with Hamas, but they're going to finish the fight, and they're going to finish the fight on their terms. So now we have all this backpedaling, and all these presidents have to, resign and be replaced, which I agree with. Who would want to be led by either of these milquetoast, wishy-washy people? It's just an absolute embarrassment. And there have been other universities who very quickly came out and stood with the students and said, we are with Israel. We do not condone terroristic actions. We believe in free speech, but you can't, as the old saying goes, you can't go into a movie theater and yell fire and cause panic and have everyone run out of the room in a stampede and some of them get trampled over and die. That's not free speech. You cannot go onto a campus and call for the death of Jews and say, well, they're just kids. It's a little bit of free speech. Let them have their freedom. They can have their freedom somewhere else, doing something else. So if the university won't educate them or expel them or publicly humiliate them as they deserve, then the university leadership needs to be replaced. And this sort of happened at Columbia University, where there were trucks going around with the names of these students who had said terrible things and signed petitions against Israel. And the students didn't like being doxxed. They didn't like being outed for their bigoted and racist beliefs. They thought they were safe. And that's the problem with the university today is, young people think they can go in there and bully the administration, bully their classmates, bully their professors, and get away with it. And they feel so successful and they're so proud. And to them, you say, well, you have 4 years to have that kind of fun because, once you hit the pavement into the real world, you're going to find out very quickly how things really work. And they do not work like that. You're going to get punched in the face. And there's nothing you're going to be able to do about it. So, hey, we love talking about AI because AI is the future. And some people are scared of AI, but AI is here. AI has been here for a long time. It's getting better every day, and it's not going anywhere. So yesterday, the Google, feeling a lot of pressure, I think, from OpenAI and Microsoft, and not really Claude 2.0. It's terrible. But Google needs to catch up. As we reviewed Google's AI for, this was called what, Duet? We tried it for a week. We had a 30-day free trial. After 7 days, we deleted it. Said, no, we don't want this. We're not paying $500 a year for that. Oh, it's terrible. So Google yesterday said, hey, we just updated Bard, which is their AI bot, with this thing called Gemini. And Gemini, I guess, is their next iteration of artificial intelligence. And here's the update that I got yesterday. Bard is getting its biggest upgrade yet with Gemini Pro. So Gemini Pro is biggest upgrade yet. We've specifically tuned Gemini Pro and Bard to be far more capable at understanding. And then there's some video, right, where they show you all these things that Bard, the next level up, Universal, whatever it's called. There's Bard, Gemini Regular, Pro, and Ultimate, Ultra, something like that. Well, I have the information. We'll look at it in a minute. But the Ultra is not available yet, so you're only stuck with this free preview in Pro, and I'm sure they're going to start charging for it. I played around with it a little bit, but here's the official PR blurb from Google about Gemini. Most capable AI model. Now, why they are incorporating Gemini into Bard, I don't know, because Bard has a terrible reputation for being awful. I find it to be sort of okay. It's like good for a secondary, tertiary check on what ChatGPT tells you. Or if you want, something to be rewritten in a different style, you ask Bard to rewrite it, and it will, sort of competently. But if you're looking for long, intricate, detailed answers, you're not getting it from Bard. So yesterday, Google released Gemini, okay? And then it showed this wild sort of video where you show Gemini a picture and it identifies the picture and talks to you. And you're just looking at it and you're saying, that really doesn't feel authentic. It feels very scripted and acted out. And that is kind of the sense that a lot of people are getting, is that there was a lot of staging in their miraculous video. Doesn't make a lot of sense. So Gemini is built from the ground up for multimodality, reasoning seamlessly behind text, code, and image. Read the blog post. This is a video, which we can't watch. Meet the first version of Gemini, our most capable AI model. I'll put all of these links in our chat discussion area on the Boles Discord server. So here, this is all the technical specs about what makes Gemini interesting and better, they hope, than ChatGPT. Okay, here are the 3 versions. Nano is for, I guess, Google phones. Then there's Pro, which we've experimented with, that's now incorporated into Bard, at least temporarily, and only, as I understand it, in the United States. Ultra has not yet been released. It's coming, I think, via API December 13th. I think. People are not really clear about what's going on with Ultra. The video you see is of Ultra. So, all the things they do in the video you can't do yourself because you don't have access to it. So this all feels very Apple-y, if you know what I mean. Apple releases something new and they put up a web page like this. It's almost exactly the same sort of experience. But these are all the videos I was telling you about, and you can read about this and judge for yourself. Bringing Gemini Pro to Bard. Experience Gemini Pro and Bard and unlock new ways to create, plan, brainstorm, and more. So I did do that. And I did a quick little podcast yesterday of an example. I'll also put this in our Discord server. Gemini Pro storytelling test. Ghost Orchid Killer. So what I did is I went into Bard. I said, hey, I want you to create a story for me, a creative story, an original story, about a detective who is a false narrator. That means not telling the truth. Is telling you a story, and then in the end, you realize the storyteller is fake, is not reliable, is telling you a story that either isn't true or that the person is lying about. And in this story, the detective in the Gemini Pro version turns out to be the serial killer that the detective has been hunting. Right? Now, that's sort of a complicated story to tell. I did it in ChatGPT as well. That version is coming up later. But yesterday, I wanted to get this out because, when Gemini Pro was announced, people were talking about it and people, use it for coding and for scientific questions. I said, well, let's give it the old creative writing test. And it came across pretty well. It's pretty good. The story is very interesting. It's almost as good as the ChatGPT version. Same sort of idea, but different visions of how the story of a serial killer detective false narrator would play out. And you can go listen to it yourself and take a look, have a listen, and see if you think the story is worthwhile or not. I also went to Bard yesterday and asked it a question. Yesterday, I said, is Norman Lear alive? And here was the answer. Unfortunately, Norman Lear passed away on December 5, 2023 at the age of 101 years old. He was a prolific and influential figure in television history, best known for creating groundbreaking sitcoms like All in the Family and Sanford and Son. His work tackled important social issues and paved the way for more diverse and realistic portrayals of American life on television, with a photograph. Now, what's interesting about this is, before this Gemini update, if you asked Google Bard a question that was sort of relative, new information, it wouldn't have, I guess, access to the internet or new information, and it would just say, I can't answer that question right now. So I was very impressed that yesterday, on the 6th, I could ask about what happened the day before. Is Norman Lear alive? He's not alive. That's a big step, that it can be current. I asked it, can you create an image of a cat riding a motorcycle? And Bard said, I can't do that, which I found a little bit disappointing. Because OpenAI can create images, but I guess in the Ultra version that's coming, it will be able to create images like DALL-E and Midjourney. Let's see if I can find the detective story. Is this it? Mysteries of Life. Okay, Norman Lear passing. Large language models. Aha, here we go. This was the question I asked. Write an original detective story that is both compelling, engaging, and frightening. And so this was the first big thing that I asked the new Bard to do. And here is the answer. It gave me in, 20 seconds this fantastic story. And then, because one of the murder victims had green eyes, it somehow either created this very weird image that I did not ask for, but it was provided to me anyway, of this red-haired young woman with interesting teeth and freckles and emerald eyes. And I guess that was like the whole center idea of the story, is the victim, the final victim of the ghost orchid killer, had emerald eyes. Weird choice. And then if you go like this, if you don't like that image, here's another image that goes with the story. Now, I didn't ask it to give me any images. I didn't ask it to tell a story other than in text. But I still found it interesting that these are that when it writes a dramatic story, these are the images that it either finds or creates or somehow. And I guess image of young woman with emerald eyes. These are the different versions you can pick. Okay. And then one of them was dead. There was just nothing there. I think it was this one because this looks very new to me. Now, where is this coming from? I don't really know. But, if you're writing an original story about a detective serial killer, this empty warehouse is pretty scary. I mean, I love this space, honestly. I wish I could live there. I mean, look at all that room, all that light. Ooh, beautiful. So, this is what happens. But it says, sorry, I can't find the image. Bard is experimental. Okay, if you can't find the image, why even tell me you can't find the image? Why not just skip over it? And then I think this was the final image of all for our ghost orchid killer of the woman with the green eyes. Oh, this is the white orchid. I guess a ghost orchid and a white orchid are the same thing? It could be. I don't know. So now we'll go here and we'll try a new chat with the new Bard. We'll get rid of this side thing so we can see a little bit better. And we'll ask what's the hot news of the day. Now, can it answer that question? Does it want to? I've never asked it a question like this before. We'll see. Here are some of the hottest news stories of the day. Well, this is interesting, pulling it from the internet to get an answer. 3 killed, 1 wounded in a shooting at the University of Nevada. Okay, that's good. Who won the debate last night? Let's ask that next. I'm not saying what debate. We'll see if it can kind of figure it out. There's no consensus on who won the Republican debate last night, as different viewers may have had different perspectives. Okay, then it goes on. CNN says this, other perspectives. Not bad. Now, how do you calculate wind chill? And we'll see if it comes up with the right formula. There are 2 main ways to calculate wind chill, using the National Weather Service formula, where meow meow is this and the wind is that. Here's a simplified formula. So let's say if it is 32 degrees I'm going to say Fahrenheit or Celsius. We're going to see if we can figure it out. 32 degrees in New York with a wind at 15 miles per hour. What is the wind chill? And we'll see if we can answer. In New York City, where temperature is 32 degrees Fahrenheit and wind speed is 15, the wind chill would be approximately 24 degrees. We calculate this. It's always good to show your work using either the National Weather Service formula or a simplified formula. And here you go is the formula. Very sweet, cool. Love it. Both calculations give a wind chill of approximately 24 degrees. And we could also get, creative. You go over here, new chat. Tell me a joke about a cat riding a motorcycle. And almost instantly, somehow, somewhere, it comes up with a joke. And here's the joke. Two cats are sitting on a park bench watching a motorcycle zoom by. One cat turns to the other and says, "Wow, I wish I could ride a motorcycle like that." The other cat replies, "Do you know how to drive?" The first cat scoffs and says, "Of course I know how to drive. I've been riding a scooter for years." I don't get it. Bonus joke. I think it knows that one kind of flopped. Question: what do you call a cat riding a motorcycle? Answer: a percyclist. Percyclist. Not sure I get the joke, but a lot of people like to mess with the AI. Ask them, if I had 2 apples yesterday, I ate 3 apples today, how many apples will I have tomorrow? And they're always tricky and, try to stump it and make it embarrassed. That's not really my thing. The new thing that I believe they stopped with OpenAI is people would say, show me an image of a bunny in a rainbow. And then they would show an image of a bunny in a rainbow. And then they'd say, make it even bigger and bolder. And then they do that for 4 or 5 times. And then they'd post all this online, meow, 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 meow. Isn't it funny? And then finally, OpenAI, DALL-E said, I'm not, repeating the exact same thing with just a little bit of a thing because it's stupid and it wastes compute time. And I have other things to do. And all the kids, you could tell they were 12 years old, were all outraged that their fun game was over to see who could get the best iterations from image to image. Didn't work out. Very weird. So I try not to waste my precious few questions that I'm allowed every day to ask ChatGPT or Bard or Microsoft Chat. And I try to make every question count because you never know when you get caught off. And if you have important things to do, you want to do the work first, and then you want to have the fun, the silliness later. And I guess that means I'm maybe a little bit more business-minded than some of these kids. But, that's the mistake we all make. We think, oh, everybody's like me. Everybody wants to know. Everybody wants to learn. And then, you have other kids who are saying, oh, we're all doing strange and funny iterations. So that's what we're all doing. And to them, it's the most important thing in the world. And to other people, it's like, why are you wasting your time and your money on that? You could be asking it to help with your homework or to solve problems in the world. Well, we had a wonderful show today. I thank you so much for being here. We talked about life in the Ivy League. We talked about snow outside, talked about volleyball, talked about Italian learning, talked about holiday tipping, and we talked about Google Gemini. Now, the word on the street for the last month or two has been, oh boy, wait till Gemini hits, you're going to be blasted out of your seat. And so far, nobody is. But Google's playing catch up. But once they get caught up, and if they stay sharp, they're probably going to outlast the competition if they decide they don't want to cancel it in 2 years, which is kind of what they do whenever they introduce something new. You get used to it, use it every day, and then they kill it. Reader is probably the prime example. Google Plus, the list goes on, believe me. So until next time, I'm David Boles. You know where to find me if you need me. Right here in our Discord server, everything we've discussed today will be put right there, right in chat. There's the link on our Discord server. You have any questions or comments? Let me know. Until next time, bye, take care, and be well.